Good afternoon, everyone. It's David Schlotthauer here with another detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Monday, June the 17th, 2024. As always, my thoughts in this video are mine alone, and making any decisions, please consult the National Hurricane Center and your local officials for the latest information regarding your area as far as the tropics go. So right now, it is pretty busy in the Atlantic with a couple of areas to watch. We have Invest 91L that we are really concerned about because it's going to bring quite a bit of rainfall potentially now to southern Texas. We could be looking at significant flooding impacts, strong winds. We could see power outages, that sort of thing, some storm surge. This has a high chance of tropical formation in the next 7 days. And then we're going to spend some of our time on an area of interest that could soon potentially impact Florida, the Carolinas, as well as Georgia. This has a 10 and 30% chance of tropical formation in the next 2 to 7 days. Looking at the close-in zoomed-in view over the Gulf of Mexico at Invest 91L for this afternoon, and we can see that the system still remains fairly disorganized other than the circulation is pretty broad and it's pretty intense right now. When we look at this imagery, we can see we have winds doing this. They're coming in out of the southeast and the southerly direction over the Yucatan Peninsula, over to the western Cuba region. And then the winds kind of curve around like so. So we do have a circulation probably somewhere right now over the Yucatan Peninsula, just getting ready to move offshore over the open waters of the Bay of Campeche, where we have water temperatures in the upper 80s. And we can see when we look for organization, we try to see a lot of convection that tries to center itself right where that circulation is. And right now it's just kind of popping up, then it dies out, then it pops up, then it dies out. We're also seeing hints of dry air because we do have some outflow accessory clouds. We can see some cloud filaments right here kind of coming out away from the center, which indicates that there is some dry air present within the system. And this could be a limiting factor on why the system is not further organizing. Secondly, we're also seeing a little bit of wind shear that is over the system. When we follow these cloud filaments right here, we are seeing southwesterly flow right now that is making this a little bit more asymmetric as we speak, and this is why we're also not seeing this organizing in a hurry. An Air Force C-130J flew through the system this afternoon and has not found that the system is very well organized. What we're looking for is more deeper colors with its wind field. We're looking for greens, we're looking for oranges and reds. We're only seeing turquoise blue, which indicates winds are generally 5 to 10 knots. They are not very strong at all, and they are very light and loose through this region. If we can pinpoint where a center might be, it might be located right here, roughly 93 degrees west by about 18.5 degrees north in latitude. So it is possibly off the coast here of the Bay of Campeche, and it wouldn't really matter a whole lot because this is a fairly disorganized storm. We're not really seeing a very concentrated area of maximum winds, and this is, again, really loose, not very poor, not very defined yet, other than the circulation is very broad and somewhat organized. But what we're looking for is a more compact nature to the system. And the recon mission that conducted their mission today has not found anything that would warrant a tropical depression or a storm yet. When we put this into perspective on the GFS model, this is a global forecasting system model. This is a numerical global computer model that us as forecasters like to look at. And what it's showing us is a lot of this convective mass right now over portions of Central America, kind of in that Central American gyre region where we have a lot of heavy rainfall. We got a lot of heavy rainfall over Honduras as well as the Yucatan Peninsula. That's what we saw on the satellite imagery. But we can tell that this wave envelope is not very organized at all. And what we look for is, again, a very compact system where we have an intense area of low pressure. This is very broad and loose and possibly not even closed at the surface. I could arguably enough that this is not a closed circulation from the recon mission that was conducted, and this is still an open wave envelope at the time being. And that makes sense when we have a disorganized system with disorganized convection. Really not many banding features at all. Outflow features are being indicated. So when we put this into perspective, it is going to be very interesting to see if we get any mesoscale features that would possibly, potentially, at least concentrate any vorticity or spin in the atmosphere. And we possibly have one area up here on the GFS model moving towards Texas. That's going to be this area right here. Potentially this big collaboration of thunderstorms right here on the satellite. We can see a lot of the convection going on. We might start to see a surface low try to form underneath that. That's probably why this mission is being conducted. They're probably going to see if they are going to be able to find anything underneath that convection mass. If so, this could be possibly a tropical depression at the very most. I'm not seeing anything significant with this other than some very heavy rainfall for the Texas coast. In fact, if we actually just zoom in and look at that area, we have a big complex of intense rainfall, potentially enough to lead to significant flood concerns. This area was plagued by some very heavy rain and hurricane force winds nearly about a month and a half ago, or about nearly a month or so. Yeah, about a month ago, a month and a half, early May was when they were plagued by that squall line that brought some devastating winds to Houston. Possibly something similar to that, only this time there's going to be some very intense rainfall in that area. So keep that in mind. Even so, the center of circulation may not make its way on shore. This is a very broad system, and so its arms do speak for themselves, and they do spread out. Looking at the total rainfall totals, first we're going to look at Texas here, so let's kind of zoom in. And again, really going to be important on exactly where the heaviest rain sets up. All right, if we look at the last few model runs, or the last 5 or so, we can see how there has been some consistency amongst the models that somewhere in this area will see the heaviest rainfall and the biggest chances for significant flooding. And there's not been much disagreement among the GFS from run-to-run consistency of that occurring. And so in the next 4 days, this area in particular, in Corpus Christi, some of the other towns in this area could see as much as 10 inches of rainfall, maybe a foot in some isolated locations in the matter of just a couple of days. In fact, if we just go back from Wednesday morning in this area, you are only going to see about 1/10 of an inch of rain. But look at this. We go 24 hours in, and some areas could see a foot of rainfall. That is pretty phenomenal, and that could possibly bring some record rainfall amounts on a day given time scale for these areas. So yeah, not just because there's probably not going to be a whole lot of wind impacts, there's going to be a lot of rainfall instead, and a lot of that could really be a big problem. Maybe some big wind impacts along the coast here of Houston and Corpus Christi, Texas, but it's going to be the rainfall that is going to come with this, and that again is going to lead to some significant issues. And you can see there that dark red, those are rainfall rates exceeding 3, even 4 inches of rain per hour. And in decibels, this would be 50 to 55 decibels. So that's intense amounts of rain. The wind, we just talked about this. Again, a very broad circulation indeed. But of course, that doesn't mean that you won't see impacts. There will be some wind and there will be some heavy rain for sure for Texas, for Louisiana as well. Now, just because also Louisiana is not going to get the heaviest rain, you're also not going to get anything out of this. You're going to get something, and it's going to be fairly robust, especially the further south you get. Some areas down here, you might see 2 inches of rainfall, perhaps even 3 inches, but the heaviest rain, like I said, would be in Texas. So now, what is the steering future with 91L, that is? Well, of course, the reason why this is not going to be able to go north in the first place is because we have this big dome of ridging that is over the eastern seaboard, over the northeast. There's a lot of excessive heat watches, heat advisories out, excessive heat warnings, because temperatures will be right around 100 degrees in these areas for several days on end, and that's because that ridge builds in. But when there's a ridge somewhere, there's a trough in another location, and in this case, we have a trough that is parked and carved out across the western half of the United States. So there's lower heights and there's an alleyway where this moisture is going to be able to flow towards. And the reason why that this trough, because it's broader in nature, so it takes a lot more stronger steering flow. But this trough too here is also going to be lifting out to the northeast. And we can see that here on the GFS model. As we go forward in time, that kind of gets moved out and this ridge is able to then back build towards the west. And it allows this trough, this broader nature trough, to move generally northwestward towards the southern coast of Texas and Mexico. And so that is why this thing is not able to turn northeastward or northward, because yeah, the weather pattern is a fluid, and this trough is also undulating as well as this ridge. So once that trough gets out of there, that ridge is able to build further in. And look at those heights there. Pretty strong anomalous ridging over the eastern seaboard. That's going to lead to some very hot temperatures, something that you are not used to this time of the year. So now that we talked about, let's go back here. Okay. So now that we talked about Invest 94 or 91L, excuse me, there over the Bay of Campeche, over the Yucatan Peninsula, we're now going to turn our attention to now our area of interest. Now, while it doesn't seem like a whole lot, some of the models have some potential at this becoming something. So as we do take a look here at the closer zoomed in view, let's actually take a look at that here on the satellite imagery. We can see that the system is still not very organized by any means, but we can get an idea where the circulation might be. If we just follow the low-level clouds, we got flow doing this around a Bermuda high or an Azores high to its east. We have flow coming around this surface high that is over the eastern seaboard. Hence is why it's going to be very hot, or a big warm-up is coming over the next couple of days. Even a little impingement here of vorticity or spin in the lower levels of the atmosphere, but because of the background state, really not going to be favorable. So we can probably think about that some spin is probably trying to get going down here underneath this deeper cloud mass of thunderstorms. And how we know that is just, again, based on our low-level wind profile of what we're seeing based on low-level cloud motions, gives us a pretty good idea of what's happening. So now when we actually take a look at that system really quickly on the NHC, they have dubbed this an area of interest. We can see there's a 30% chance of tropical formation in the next 7 days. It's a low chance, but it is there. It's a non-zero chance, so there is a chance. Even a 10% is some sort of a chance, and we have to respect that, right? And then, of course, I did not really mention much of this on the NHC. There is that high chance over the Yucatan Peninsula. So now looking at the GFS model on this little guy, let's take a look and zoom out so I can fit that to screen. We can see here, once again, there is our area of disturbed weather. Let's see what happens to this little guy as we go forward in time. And it does try to close off in the next couple of days. We can see that disturbance right there. It has limited moisture because, of course, the heights here are higher. And our air pressure relative to the environmental pressure is pretty high at 1,018 millibars. It's not like what you want. You want to see air pressure lower than 1,012 millibars for a more bona fide system. So the air here is pretty stable, but it is a system, and we have to really watch where it's going to hit. And right now on the latest GFS model, in the next 5 days, it places that the system might make landfall near the Carolinas, near North Carolina, South Carolina area. If we go back to a couple of runs ago, we can see how this was much stronger. In fact, on the 060 run, it was probably going to be a pretty strong tropical storm moving over Wilmington, North Carolina. The previous run of that from yesterday did not show much. So this is kind of a back and forth kind of thing. Did get some help. The Canadian model not indicating much, and the European, the 060 run, only goes out to 90 hours. Really not indicating much of a wave envelope here, but please, folks, this does not mean it's not going to develop. We could see a lot of surprise systems that the models do miss. They're not perfect. They're only a forecast and a reference point, and a lot can change because the weather pattern is always changing every second of our lives. So as that pattern changes currently, this affects the snow. It's a butterfly effect, right? So right now, at this given point, I'm still indicating that Florida, you cannot, you don't let your guard down on this, including the Carolinas as well as Virginia, because there is a system potentially headed your way. And also, not going to really talk about this in great detail in today's video, but we might have to watch the Gulf of Mexico beyond the 7-day period, and that is because the GFS model and even the Euro now beginning to pick this up. We might have more areas to watch down the road. The Central American gyre, hard at work, keeping things really busy. But anyways, if you did enjoy today's detailed tropical weather outlook and discussion for Monday, June the 17th, 2024, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, hit the like button, and share this video with your family and friends on social media. As always, as long as the tropics remain fairly active, I will be very active here on YouTube with another tropical weather outlook and discussion tomorrow afternoon. Until next time, I'll see you tomorrow.